All right, guys, we're back for another episode this week of Brushing Them Back with Kobe White. I'm William, your co-host. Of course, Kobe's still out chasing that dream, doing some rehab assignments, and before you know it, that guy's going to be pitching in the MLB. So be looking out for that. Tonight, I get the opportunity again because I'm here running the show by myself to talk to a pretty interesting fella. We have a special guest tonight. He's a baseball historian and he is also an artist. His name is Greg Kreindler. I'm gonna go ahead and bring Greg up.
Hey,
Greg, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. Fantastic. I was as we were talking just before we got started with the live show. I was talking to Greg, telling him that I've checked out a lot of his work. Very interesting stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about it tonight. Greg, first of all, probably the easiest way to get started with this conversation tonight is kind of take us back to your early days. Like, I know you're a baseball guy and I know you're an artist and you merged the two worlds together beautifully. But like, let's talk early life and early influences. Like, where did it all start? Were you like an athlete with artistic ability? Were you had no athletic ability, but you loved the game and you wanted to depict it? You wanted to give your rendition of it. How did that work?
Well, funnily enough, I hoped that I had athletic ability, but I had none. I was in Little League, and I'm sure it was my dad's dream to kind of take over center field for the Yankees. But no, even though my name is spelled just like Greg Nettles, and I wanted to play third base, I wanted to wear number 9, but I did not live up to that namesake. So yeah, my entrance into baseball was really just through my father and through my mother, and I guess through my older brother too, because we used to go to games, pretty regularly. I think like they had told me on a couple occasions that they had actually taken me to Yankee Stadium when I was an infant. We're talking like 6 or 9 months old or something like that, which is insane. But yeah, apparently I was there. So at the time when I was young, I was like kind of learning to draw and focusing on drawing kind of like cartoons and other stuff that I was watching. But then I kind of liked baseball kind of separately from that. So there were two separate worlds in the beginning. But they kind of collided a bit when I discovered what was left of my dad's baseball card collection. So my dad was born in 1944 and grew up in New York City, and big Yankee fan, still is a big Yankee fan, and he collected a lot of cards. Usually, like kind of the stuff that he started with was like the Bowman and Topps issues of like the late 40s, early 50s,
right?
And his, you have the story, the common story of like, the mother finding the cards when the kid is away at school or something and thinking, oh, he doesn't need these or she doesn't need these, I'm throwing these out. She did that to most of his cards, but there were some left, and ones that dated back to the late 40s. And the cards back then, for those who don't know, for the most part, they were illustrated. They weren't actually, just photography. So I think when I kind of discovered those cards, something kind of clicked in my head where like, oh, I can do this, not thinking that I was, going to be doing this for a living or like some sort of vocation, but it was like, oh, well, my dad loves Mickey Mantle, so why don't I try to draw Mickey Mantle? This guy drew Mickey Mantle and that guy drew Yogi Berra. So that's kind of how it started.
So you were like Picasso right off the bat, like 2 years old, you were able to.
Well, I think
you said you tried to draw them. That's why
right. Yeah. My earliest drawings, I think, resembled most of Picasso's later, Cubism period stuff.
Right.
I think I had. I don't love using the word talent. But I think I had kind of like a spark. And I think what happened was I worked on it a lot. I did a lot of drawing, and my parents were always very, almost embarrassingly supportive of it. So, I was very lucky in that my brother and I grew up in a family that, kind of valued culture. So we would go to museums all the time. We would go to like Broadway shows. We would go to all these places that just kind of exposed me to so much more than what I was watching, on He-Man and G.I. Joe, even though that stuff was awesome too. So yeah, I think from the beginning, I kind of realized that being an artist was something that you can do, if if it works out, whatever that means.
I
I
would have
still don't even know what
never,
that means.
I'd have never in a million years believed I'd have got a He-Man reference this early into the show.
Oh yeah, it all
He-Man.
starts with He-Man.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course it does. All right, so the artistic ability and the baseball collided at, like you said, when you were rummaging through the cards, and that was kind of what you got you started. Now,
Yes.
you, by your own admission, not you would not consider yourself a budding artist at that time. You were trying real hard.
I was trying real hard. I mean, you know what? It depends on who you talk to. I mean, if you talk to my parents, like I said, they're embarrassingly supportive, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, we knew since he was 3 years old he was gonna do this and do that." But I, still to this day, everything that I touch, everything that I create, is always kind of like, well, it could be better. Uh, so I, I think I developed my abilities, and I think that I kind of got good at drawing. Maybe good compared to the people around me, good compared to the people in my school.
All right.
If that makes sense.
So the artistic ability, where did it come from? Were your parents artistic? Was your brother artistic? No.
We're not sure. So here's the thing. My mom was a math teacher for 35 years, taught in the Bronx, which is
Okay.
one of the five.
Geometry. It's all about lines and angles. Okay, I see where we're
Right.
going with this.
But then my dad also, he taught science, also in the Bronx for 35, 40 years, actually a little bit longer. Um, my brother can also draw, and he still can draw, but he's actually a musician now.
Mm.
Um, what we think might have happened is that, so my grandmother on my mom's side, I think, was a very talented seamstress. So she was working with her hands a lot. And my grandfather, my father's father, was an actor. Um, Not like he wasn't a Hollywood star or anything like that, but he did
Right.
a lot of like summer stock, and was in a couple of
East
shows.
Coast theatrical type stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Maybe it came from that. I
Mm.
honestly, I have
You
no.
just sound like a hodgepodge of talent all the way around now.
Well, it's a hodgepodge of something. I don't I don't know if it's talent, but it's a hodgepodge of a lot of neuroses and stuff like that.
Well, we need to take just a moment and give both your parents a shout out for putting up with the public school system for 35 plus years in both instances. I
Oh,
don't know how anybody can make it 35 days in the public school system now. So
they
35 years,
worked.
that's a real shout out right there.
Oh
So,
yeah, no, they worked incredibly hard their whole lives. They're wonderful, still wonderful people, and I mean, I wouldn't be where I am, wherever that is. I wouldn't be where I am without them, and I mean that in a good way.
okay, so you kept honing the skills. You got a little better and a little better and a little better. When did you realize, you know what, I'm pretty good at this? I need to go wherever I need to go. I'm assuming you went to some type of well-known art school that taught you how to finesse your skill to the point that you're now Greg
Yeah,
Kreindler.com, I might add. When you start
yeah.
putting a .com behind your name, you're pretty good at something. So,
Well, a friend of mine, a friend of mine says that like once you have that, or if you have like a Wikipedia page or something, you're like you've made it, whatever that
a
means.
Wikipedia page. I don't know
Yeah,
if I agree with him on that, but go ahead.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, but what's funny is that so when I grew up, when I got a little older and kind of went into my adolescent years,
Mhm.
I was still drawing a little bit, but I kind of fell out of love with it.
Mhm.
Uh, I fell out of love with baseball a little bit, and I kind of just went into my old into my own kind of world, and became a teenager and
The
became
rebellious years. I
weird.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but like not rebellious so much as like I was kind of always hoping that girls would notice me, and that never happened. So I was just kind of getting used to being ignored by them. um, but I think I had always figured that I'm good at art. I'm good at drawing, basically. Not so much art itself, but I'm good at drawing, and it's probably something that I would pursue, in college or after college, not taking into consideration the fact that, I wasn't even sure if I still really enjoyed it or not. But yeah, I basically I ended up going to the School of Visual Arts, which is it's a private school in Manhattan, and the reason I went there was because I had started being an apprentice for a science fiction / fantasy book cover
Here we
illustrator.
go. I knew we were headed to Dungeons and Dragons eventually.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I had always kind of been into that stuff, not necessarily playing D&D or
Right.
even reading a
Dungeons
lot
and
of that stuff.
Dragons, Diablo. At this
Right.
point, at this point, you were probably thinking even maybe game designer at this point. Huh?
I mean, it's like it was an option,
Right.
even though I didn't know anything about it. But I was like, ooh, I could do that. I just personally, I loved the visual aspect of it. I loved the visual like iconography of fantasy and science fiction. I still do. But yeah, I started working with this guy, and he was making a living being an illustrator, doing book covers. I was like, that's cool. So he taught me a lot about the professional world, and kind of started me in the whole journey for painting. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the School of Visual Arts because they have an illustration program, and it's not taught by professors. I mean, they are professors, I guess, but these are actually people who work in the field of illustration. They're like professional illustrators.
Right.
So the teaching gig is like a secondary thing. So I went there. I worked my butt off, and like a year or so into it, I came to the realization that I didn't love the science fiction fantasy stuff as much as I guess I didn't love creating it as much as I loved consuming it.
Right.
It didn't really like pull on the heartstrings. It was just kind of something that I was working on and getting somewhat decent at, but I felt like something was missing. Uh, and that kind of all changed in my senior year. Because in my senior year, I mean, I had kind of like this crazy meltdown where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself because I don't want to do this kind of illustration. I don't know what kind of art I want to do. I don't know. But I stuck it out. It's my last year. I'm in my portfolio class, which is basically just a class that you're taking with a bunch of kids, and it's designed to kind of get you ready to submit a portfolio of work to an art director for
Senior graduation project type deal.
right.
Got to
Yeah,
have it to graduate kind of deal.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And
Right.
and what he would do was, every couple of weeks he'd give a new assignment, and he would make them very vague, very general, so you could kind of go off on them however you wanted to. And he gave the assignment to illustrate a relationship. And like for whatever reason, like one of the first things that came into my head was the relationship between a pitcher and a batter. And I ran with it. And I kind of figured, okay, well, I'm still watching baseball like a little bit at that point, but what was really interesting to me was going back to like that time when I was a kid and being like, oh, I'm going to paint Mickey Mantle. I'm going to do this painting for my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I got super into it, like the whole research aspect of it. I think I knew that baseball fans were crazy. I mean, in a good way. How we're all anal about.
Fandom. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Fandom.
with baseball. I feel like it's it's unlike every other sport. I mean, it's just so strict and rigid with how stuff has to look and how stuff has to feel, and with stats and history. And I think I was very conscious of that. So I knew that if I was going to paint Mickey Mantle, it had to look like Mickey Mantle.
Right.
Uh, if I'm painting him at bat, the uniform that he's wearing has to be from whatever specific year, and that has to be consistent with, the fit of it, his batting stance, the ballpark he's in, the advertisements in the ballpark, the time of day that the moment happened. And I got into that stuff and I loved it. And I did a painting, and my dad loved it. The class kind of seemed to really react positively to it. The teacher did as well. And that was like my first mature, baseball
Right.
painting. And that's what started it.
All right, so let's recap for just a second. Let's
Sorry,
go
that was a big
First of all,
download.
your brother. How old? Your brother's older than you or younger than you?
He's older.
Older
He's
than you. How
Yeah.
much older? Were y'all
He
in high school together?
No. We were
Oh,
close.
lucky,
Yeah,
lucky. Yeah.
I would have loved to have had high school with him. He's 4 years older than me.
Oh, so he was
But
getting out of high school and you were just starting it. So.
but the way it works is that in our town, for whatever reason,
Mhm.
our high school actually started in 10th grade, not in ninth.
Okay.
So when I was
That's
getting
crazy,
in
but
10th
okay.
grade, he was gone. So
Okay. So, all right. So you let me see if I'm caught up, if I'm up to speed with you. All right. So you tapped out your athletic ability somewhere between T-ball and Little League, somewhere in
yeah,
like the 7-8 year range. You realized I'm not Mickey Mantle.
might have
So
even been before then.
so when you were getting into your teenage years, you knew athletics might not be the route to get the ladies. Then you had a brother. Then you had a brother that was older than you and much cooler than you, and he was a musician of all things. So you
Yeah,
knew music wasn't going to be your route. You couldn't just take a guitar and go to like the beach with a fire and woo the ladies. I understand that.
not at
But
that
you
age.
thought, you know what? I'm going to do this drawing thing. I'm pretty good at it, and this is going to be my avenue to get the ladies. That turned out well for you, correct?
Well, I mean, I'm happily married and I have
There you
children,
go.
so I guess it
You
worked.
found one that enjoyed it for sure. So, all
Right.
right. So we were talking about this. You went to college. You had that same moment a lot of college kids have. You got 250 credits from college. You have no earthly idea what you're going to do when you get out. You got to you realize, oh my God, in 6 months I got to get a real job,
Right.
and it hit you in the head like a hammer. And then you decided, well, just I don't know, was it a fluke moment? This project that just happened to be dropped into your lap?
Well, what's funny is that I'm very lucky in that because I had that apprenticeship with that guy kind of at the end of high school. Um, I I knew that I guess I knew that you have kind of like a security blanket um, in college, and I kind of knew that the way things worked was that at the end of my college career or whatever, my professors, the people who were teaching me how to paint and draw and everything, all of a sudden I'm being thrown to the lions, and they're kind of my competition. Like, these are the people, like if I'm trying to get a book cover job from somebody, the people I'm competing against are the people who are teaching me. And
Mm-hmm.
that I knew that early on, and that was a super sobering thought, and maybe also I don't want to say that it prepared me, because I was still like smacked in the face with that.
That's right. Real job, 6 months. What am I going to
Yeah,
do?
man, it was.
That college life was just so simple. I'm like, and now I got to go to work, real job work. So, but the apprenticeship did prepare you though. That's good. I mean, I know a lot of college kids that lumber through 4 or 5 years and they still don't have a clue what they're going to do when they get out. So,
Yeah, well, it really helped. It really helped. Had I not studied with that guy, I mean, things just would not have been the same. I don't know if I would be where I am now. I kind of doubt it, or actually I highly doubt it. Uh, but yeah, I learned just so much from being with him, and just seeing how he did things. It was I mean, it's the best education that I could have asked for.
Well, different artists have different styles. I mean, did you mimic his style, or did you realize during that apprenticeship you were kind of creating your own style?
I mean, I was mimicking him in the sense that, he was teaching me to paint, specifically to paint,
Mm.
more so to paint than anything. I mean, and I never really painted before I met him. So I basically, it's kind of like what he was teaching me was gospel. And it wasn't until I got to college, maybe even like a little bit, into a year in or whatever, that I realized that, hey, yes, what he taught you was great. And it's a great starting off point, but there's so much out there. And you, I guess I started to realize that, I had all these different kind of tastes in art, and I was attracted to all kinds of different, you know, ways of painting, all these different styles. And it took a while, it took a while of like experimenting to try to kind of find out what my voice is, so to speak. And even now, it's still kind of an adjustment, because though I do think I have a voice, it changes. It doesn't kind of, it's not like in a vacuum, or at least it hasn't been since I started doing it. But yeah, I don't know what it's going to lead to. Who knows? Maybe I'll be, doing like abstract expressionist stuff in 20 years or something.
Yeah.
I hope not, but.
So you had never, what you do now every day, you had never done before until you met this guy. Never,
Yeah.
not even dabbled with it, not even thought about it.
I mean, I was always scared of painting. I was scared of color. The painting, like so if I'm drawing, if I have a pencil and I'm just drawing like this,
Yeah.
I felt like I had all the control in the world. But once you turn it into a paintbrush and all of a sudden I'm holding it by the end here, you lose some of that control. And I was like, I don't like that. I can't do the same thing that I can do with with drawing. So I tried kind of experimenting here and there, and the results always, frankly, sucked. So I was kind of discouraged. I I got into Bob Ross. I tried his methods.
I was about to say, if you didn't stumble across a couple episodes of Bob Ross, I mean,
Yeah.
that guy makes painting look too easy.
Oh, absolutely, and he's such a joy to watch. Yeah, I tried all that stuff, and it just wasn't working, or wasn't working for me.
Right.
But I think,
well, there's not that many trees in a baseball stadium.
Well, sometimes, I mean,
I'm just saying, maybe in Colorado, maybe, but not in 1938. There wasn't. So.
Right. Yeah. You have to go back like 50, 60 years.
Right.
But yeah, I just never felt comfortable with it. And I think what happened was, when I got older, when I turned 19, 20 or whatever, I think that there was some sort of connection that I think I made. I don't know how to explain this, but it's kind of like a set of skills, like motor, like technical skills were there that were not there before. And I think it had to do with being older and maybe being able to process things mentally a lot clearer. And that kind of did it for me. I mean, I still, even though I, make a living doing this stuff, and I absolutely adore it, I still struggle, with what I'm painting, and I still feel like I'm not really getting it, and that I need to be a lot better and this and that. But I think that's also just part of being a neurotic artist.
Okay, so you picked up your Liam Neeson skills on painting. Because for some crazy reason, Bob Ross let you down. I can't believe that. I'm crushed to know that Bob Ross couldn't deliver you.
It's not his fault. Bob Ross did his best. I mean,
all right. So on the Bob Ross train, while we're on here, I got a question. When you're painting, when you're working on a project, do you self-narrate? Do you catch yourself talking to yourself while you're painting? You do? Is that like a coping mechanism or a?
I don't know what it is. To be honest, I do it all the time. It's not so much of a conversation as like what Bob Ross would have. I'm
Right.
not saying, and
So
then
you're
I'm
not narrating the project.
right, right. Yeah, I'm not like take a little titanium white and put it into some
Yeah.
Van Dyke Brown.
Yeah.
No, I'm like I'll do a mark here and there. I'll be like, oh, Greg, you're such an effing idiot. That's wrong. No,
Yeah.
you got to wipe that
Yeah.
off. You got to do
Yeah.
that again.
That doesn't look anything like Mickey Mantle.
Yeah,
What?
exactly. Yeah. Oh, way to go, Greg. Way to waste another hour.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Look at all that paint I just wasted. Just wasted it.
Yep.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
understand. That's
all the
okay
time.
though, because Bob Ross would tell you there are no mistakes in painting.
Happy accidents. Is that the phrase that he
I
used or something?
don't. I don't know. I could be having the worst day and watch him, and I feel fantastic after it's over. So.
He's
All right, so let's back up just a second. Okay, the watershed moment, the aha moment that you had when you knew you were going to be doing this, that goes back to that senior project where you did the painting, and you're like, this is it. I've looked and looked and looked, and now I'm seeking it, and now I have found it.
I mean, I don't think that was an aha moment. That was the first one.
Okay.
There were others.
Okay.
I mean, I still had a long way to go in terms of developing my skills and technique and all that stuff, and I still do. But I graduated, and I moved back in with my parents, which was awesome of them, and probably awesome for them, because I'm a delight. But they continued to be very supportive, and I ended up working some odd jobs here and there, and I did a couple of illustration jobs. Only like one or two of them were actually baseball related, but I did some jobs. I made a little bit of money, but it wasn't enough to sustain anything. So a couple years into it, I'm thinking, all right, I gotta, I don't know if this is going to happen. I got to do something. And I decided, all right, well, parents are teachers. Maybe I can go back to school and get my master's in art education, and maybe I'll try being an art teacher. See how that fits. And I went back. I went to Lehman College, which was in the Bronx, and I got certified to teach, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. I mean, I was still painting when I could, and still painting mainly baseball stuff. But it's like I had just about gotten certified. Like I took whatever exams I needed to take. I did my student teaching. I was ready to kind of put my thing together and start submitting resumes. And then something crazy happened. An article about my artwork was published in the New York Times. This is in 2007.
Mr. New York Times, I hear you.
And it was the Sunday section, the Sunday art section of the New York Times, which is like, I mean, if you're like an artist, that it doesn't really get any better than that. I had no business being there. Like, there were millions of people who deserved to be there more than I did, but I think whatever happened was the writer pitched the story, and something just kind of resonated, and they published it, and that changed everything, because I was getting calls and emails of people wanting to buy work, and basically everything that I had, I sold, and I was commissioned to do more work. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is something that I might be able to kind of run with for a while. I ended up getting an agent who kind of took care of a lot of that stuff for me, and he kind of shaped a career for me over the next couple of years. And it turned out that I just did not have to teach, which I still feel a little bit weird about, but I'm also very happy because I love doing this stuff. But like that, when that article was published, that was like the turning point. That was it. That changed everything. And since then, it's just been I mean, I'm the luckiest guy on the earth. I really am. Even though I still, I thank my stars every day, and I still worry that at some point someone's going to come knocking on the door with a clipboard saying, "All right, Greg, looks like you've been, screwing around for about 15 years. It's time to go out and get a real 9 to 5 job,
Here
kid."
we go. That real job thing
Yep.
coming back.
Get
Well,
get your
see, the
lunch pail.
problem is the New York Times. The young folks call that "you're a baller" is what it is.
Right.
You're a baller. You probably didn't know what you were. You're a baller.
I didn't
And
feel
that
like
kind of leads in it because I was curious about like where your art generates from. Like, is it something that you like conceptualize in a dream and you go, you know what, I'm going to work on Yankee Stadium from 1945 or whatever,
right.
or was it generated through commission work from people, historical preservation, that type of stuff? I was curious where the majority of it came from, and you just told me you had more work than you know what to do with. So
Yeah, I did, which was great. But at the same time, you were talking earlier about I think this was before we started. You were talking about that I was painting a lot of players or teams or whatever that you'd never heard of, and a lot of that comes from me because I've also as much as I love painting Babe Ruth and I love painting Lou Gehrig and all of like the top tier Hall of
right,
Fame stars or whatnot. I've just always felt that baseball is such a large tapestry that just has so many different facets of it, and I feel like the lesser known players, even lesser Hall of Famers or people who didn't even make it to the bigs, uh, people who were in other leagues, whether it be the Negro leagues, the Latin American leagues, the All American Girls Professional Baseball League, like they're all a part of that tapestry, and it became very important for me to paint those men and women also. Um, Even when I didn't have people like kind of knocking down my door asking for paintings of those men and women,
right,
it was still very important for me to do that. And it still is.
right.
So like that stuff kind of came more so from within.
Curiosity question. We didn't discuss this earlier, so I'm literally coming out of left field. Is
Yeah.
have you ever been contacted to be like a consultant on a sports movie because of your, you know, how they do all the boards, the visual boards and all that kind of stuff. Have you ever been contacted to be part of that process on any movie?
Not on any
Because well, you
movie.
mentioned the all girls the baseball league or whatever. That kind of I said, you know what, he might have worked on the League of Their Own. I didn't check your IMDb page. I mean, you said you had a Wikipedia page and you were a .com. So
I don't think I have an IMDb page. Uh, I actually have a good friend who did work not on the show itself, but was a consultant for the recent League of Their Own show. My buddy Anika, who she does amazing work, but I I've helped a lot with certain kind of like productions and documentaries, whether it's kind of like adding some work to the documentary or show, or being like a very I don't want to even say consultant because it's just like a vague thing. Like they'd kind of email me out of the blue and be like, "Hey, is this so and so field?" And I say, "Yeah, that's so and so field from from this particular year." Blah blah blah.
right.
It hasn't really gone anything past that, at least on like the consulting side. But yeah, there've been a couple documentaries that have used my work, which is also really awesome.
Well, you have a pretty extensive knowledge of the sport of baseball. Because
I
I mean, you have to because some of the stuff that you present, some of your art projects are like, where is I'm like, what is this like Hoboken, New York? What is this? I'm like, Hoboken, New Jersey. I guess it'd be Hoboken, New Jersey. Is this like Richard Pryor pitching on the mound, against the Yankees, that kind of stuff. I mean, I went through your website. You've got fields that haven't existed in 50 or 60 years. And
yeah.
it's like you're sitting in the stands. So
Well,
that's
thank
what I
you.
was
That's
wondering. I
awesome.
mean, how intense is your preparation project? I mean, your process when you get ready to do a project like that.
Oh man, it's intense. I mean, I like to research. I mean, I love reading about this stuff, and I really do try to kind of get into the weeds, um, where I'm looking through newspapers. I used to do the whole microfilm thing, though I think that's kind of become a thing of the past because of the internet.
Man,
But
you just dated yourself with microfiche.
I
Holy
know,
crap!
I know. Um, but yeah, I mean, I used to do that stuff all the time. Just looking for, like, there would be sometimes, let's say during like an opening day or something, like a new ballpark or like a newly renovated ballpark. Sometimes you would have sports writers who were going to that first game and they're being like, oh, well, the field was in immaculate condition and, the stands were painted red. And I'd be like, this is just like a little throwaway line that they had. They're just kind of
Right,
describing the scene. But that's when I'm like, well, I have a firsthand eye account, saying that this particular, grandstand was red. So I know that I'm being historically accurate. And I try to do that with all the stuff I do. Granted, so much of it comes from the era of, black and white photography. So
right.
it's hard to be 100% sure
Because if
all
you're
the
not
time.
reading a newspaper account of it or catching an actual audio of like the PA guy, for example,
Well,
it
I
be
mean, sometimes I do. I mean, sometimes, a lot of times, definitely, I'll read the newspaper accounts, but um, there's only so much information you can get. There's also, like, there've been other things that have been very helpful. Like there was a series on HBO that I think first started in the early '90s called When It Was a Game,
yes,
and
amazing series also.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's like literally, like, one of my reasons for doing what I do and enjoying it was just how they kind of packaged everything. But for those who don't know, it's this wonderful series that kind of tells the history of baseball from the Depression eras into, well, at the end of the '60s, and it's all of the footage that's used. It's home movie footage from the players. The majority of it is in color, like real, actual color. Starting from, I think, 37 and 38, which is uh, kind of when the color film was actually first
Yeah,
available to the public. Uh, and so it's like, they have this great footage of Wrigley Field, from the 1938 World Series against, the Cubs against the Yankees, shot by Tony Piet. And I'm like looking at this, I'm like, oh my God, this is Lou Gehrig in color. This
yeah,
is Gabby Hartnett in color. This is Joe McCarthy. This is Bill Dickey. It's like it's not a Ted Turnerized version of it. Like,
right. Not,
this was what it really was.
it's not technical. It's not the president in Technicolor.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's intoxicating. That thing was intoxicating to me. So there was a lot of information that I could find in those videos, and I thankfully became kind of friendly with the people who put those films together, and they've always been very generous with their archives. But I literally, I swear to you, I, like, once a month I'll text one of them and be like, "This is just your monthly reminder that When It Was a Game absolutely changed my life." So you did something good. I
It
swear.
is amazing. It is as a baseball. I've been a huge baseball fan my whole life, and that was one of the absolute best. That's why I also asked about the movies that they made. Were you a part of any of those? Um, what about like everything you do is a time capsule? I mean, that's it. Literally is every project you do is a time capsule because if
Thank you.
it weren't for you, that would be lost forever. Like there will be a generation that comes that has no idea who Mickey Mantle or Joe DiMaggio is. They won't know who Ernie Banks was. They won't even heck they won't even know who Tony Gwynn is.
That's
There'll be a
unfortunate.
generation to come that nobody that they won't. And Tony Gwynn is my favorite player of all time.
That's
And as long as
unfortunate.
I'm alive, everybody's gonna know about Tony Gwynn because I tell everybody. But I'm just saying there'll be a generation soon that they won't even know who Tony Gwynn is. So everything you do you feel the pressure? of knowing that every project you work on is a time capsule, a historical preservation of the greatest game ever created?
I mean, there's pressure. It's not so much pressure of that; it's pressure that I kind of put on myself, just to kind of make sure everything is right. Uh, but the hope, the hope is that when people see the work, that it kind of sparks curiosity, and at the same time, showing that that there was a line that the writer used in the New York Times piece that I actually really still like, something about a painter who knows that Babe Ruth didn't hit home runs in black and white, and showing these people that Babe Ruth was a real person,
Yeah.
like Mike King Kelly in the 19th century was a real person. He lived and breathed the same air that we do, which is crazy. And like when you're a little kid, you see black and white stuff. You're like, why was the world not in color yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm privileged in that I guess there are some people who seem to really like what I do, and it really vibes with them, and hopefully, hopefully that audience grows, and maybe I can kind of change that narrative a little bit, and make people, remember that life wasn't in black and white.
I got a few curiosity questions now about
Sure.
some of the stuff you've done. What is the from a time standpoint, like what is the oldest player? Not really the oldest player, but how far did you go back? Like the one project you got that goes back probably middle 1800s, I'd say. How far back do you know who that is?
Yes.
I know you've done so many.
Yes. Yeah.
Who is the oldest representation of a baseball player that you've ever done?
Well, the current winner, can I call him current?
He's very fast.
Right. The current past winner.
Matter of fact, his grandchild might not even be still alive.
Yeah, I don't think they would be.
Yeah.
It's a guy named Bill Craver. Bill Craver played for the Troy Haymakers. Actually, it was before they were the Troy Haymakers. They were the Unions, I believe. I might be wrong on that. But the image that I worked from was from 1866, and it's just a portrait of him. And it freaks me out every time I post it or look about it or think about it. It freaks me out that I'm doing a portrait of this guy. The photograph that I'm working from, this was taken literally a year after the Civil War ended, and
insane. That is absolutely insane. All right. So on the flip side, what is the most recent player or field or whatever that your project you've had?
Most recent, I did a painting. I finished a painting last year of Tim Anderson's Field of Dreams home run against the Yankees. And that was what was that, August of 2022, I think. So that's I think that's the most recent.
Yeah, Tim Anderson. He's a Mississippi guy.
Oh, is he?
He played college in Mississippi.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The state of Mississippi has a ridiculous heritage of baseball players. It really does. We had the Dean boys. Izzy
right.
Dean and
Izzy and Paul.
But he had a nickname too, but everybody knows him by Dean. They were from Wiggins, Mississippi, which is not far from where I live. So
Cool.
Yeah, they were from here. The Gas House. I've always been a Gas House gang guy.
Oh yeah.
I watched a documentary on them one time, and it was like, they were rambunctious, but I loved them even more after that. So yeah, I'm a big Cubs fan though, so that's what I'm saying. It was hard. It was hard to do it. I couldn't root for the Cardinals in anything. I couldn't. I don't care how good they were back then. I couldn't root for them.
Yeah, no, not as a Cubs.
That's like if you're a Yankees fan, you can't root for the Mets. It's against the law.
Well, it might even be more so Yankees Red Sox.
Yeah. Well, that's a divisional deal. I'm talking about inside the state.
Oh yeah. There are
Mets fans and there are Yankees fans. You can't be both. Oh, well, we're just going to root for the state of New York. Well, that's stupid. That's the
Pick a
dumbest thing I've
side.
ever heard.
Pick a
That's like
side.
when it well, for example, I'll give you an example here. When it gets to college football season, we have Mississippi State University and we have University of Mississippi, which is referred to as Ole Miss.
Right.
Well, states out of the running. We're going to root for Ole Miss the rest of the year because we want to see them do well. That is absolute. You should have your tongue cut out for even saying such a thing. It's that kind of this. I know about Boston and New York. I can't imagine. That's one thing on my bucket list. I would love to go to Fenway Park and see a Yankees Red Sox. That's one of the stadiums on my I'd love to go to Fenway Park. I would love, of course, Wrigley Field. Never been to Wrigley Field. Love to go there. I tell you a place out west I'd love to go be Coors Field. I think Coors Field is one of the coolest design stadiums that they've ever done.
Yeah,
and then you get way out west and they are like down the one they're building in Tampa. It looks like a spaceship. I don't want to go. I don't want any part of that. So
no.
So.
Well, I wonder, honestly, I've been to like a few college football games here and there, but I know.
Well, first of all, you're talking about New York.
Yeah.
Y'all really don't have any college football teams in New York, do you?
I was gonna say it's not like it is down.
I'm just saying. I mean, it's
the truth.
It's like going to an Ivy League game. I mean, it's a lot of smart kids, but I mean, they're
no, you're 100% right. That's the thing. I was gonna say it's not. Like
if you ever want to go see college football, you got to come south to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's usually brothers and cousins versus each other. I mean, these kids are better than that. You got kids that have played against each other in high school that play all against each other all the way through college. So
yeah,
that's just how it is.
That to me, like that's the real deal. Like I in my head, those rivalries are probably the most intense in sports, period.
Well,
I mean,
that's just like baseball rivalries that I grew up on, where if you threw at a guy, it was expected for your pitcher to throw at the guy that the next half inning. That was
right.
Like if you didn't, you'd catch it from your own teammates.
Right.
Or my favorite one is if they, I'm trying to think what the best example would be if my guy gets hit. Oh, it used to be, especially in the 70s, if my guy gets hit and he doesn't at least walk halfway to the pitcher's mound to show him what's about to happen, I've lost all respect for the guy.
Right.
Now, if they even look at the guy, they get ejected.
Yeah, they get ejected.
We don't want to get started on how baseball is being ruined by Manfred. I hear enough of that on Twitter. I don't want to. Matter of fact, you haven't done a portrait, a rendition of Manfred, have you?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I
just checking, because if you don't put the horns in it, you did not do a full depiction of it. Because he is the devil.
I actually would not mind painting some commissioners, but I have no desire to paint him. No offense, Rob, if you're watching.
Yeah, Manfred, if you're checking this out, I do not back off what I just said.
No offense. I just, there are other people I'd rather paint.
All right. One last question. We're going to kind of tie a bow on this thing.
Okay.
All right. Would you have ever, as 5-year-old you or 10-year-old you, have ever fathomed that your artwork would take you to the places it's taken you at this point in your life?
Oh my God. That's a good question.
That's a fantastic question. That's why I ask it.
Wow.
Well, you said you've kind of divulged that you had like inklings that you could be really good at it throughout your life, but
they were, it's like being young and naive, I don't know. I don't know how young Greg would react. I think that on like the one hand, he'd be like, yeah, see, I told you, you'd just be doing art. Yeah. And on the other hand, be like, wow, that's amazing. I don't know. That's a really great question.
Yeah. Now you can say chicks dig the paintbrush.
Well, at least one did. So,
well, that's all you really need in this world. So. I was just curious though, if you would have a chance to talk to 10-year-old you and say, hey, it's how it's going to turn out. Would 10-year-old you have believed it?
I don't know. I mean, I was pretty cynical as a 10-year-old. I'm pretty cynical now. Yeah, I would like to think after 10-year-old me gets over, like pooping in his pants for meeting 43-year-old me.
You have a Back to the Future moment.
Yeah, after I get
technically, what I just proposed can happen because you can't cross in the same timeline, you'll explode or something.
That's true.
I don't remember exactly what Dr. Brown said, but that's something like that. So.
That's right. It cancels each other out.
That's right.
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling that it would, if I could tell 10-year-old me that things were going to be okay, so far they've been okay, knock on wood, that might ease a lot of stress for the rest of from my 10 to 43 age.
Well, you wouldn't be sweating it your senior year in college at that point.
You know what? Knowing me, I'd find something to sweat about because I'm like always looking for I'm just always waiting for the other shoe to drop or something.
All right. So
yeah,
for all the listeners out there that have no idea who this guy is, go to his website. I'm fixing to put it up where you guys can check out his work. What about social media? I mean, does everybody need to go through your website or do you have other social media?
It's
probably all tied to your website, huh?
Yeah, it is. But I mean, as long as you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram. I'm even on TikTok, though I never use it because I'm 43.
Yeah, I jumped on TikTok for a few minutes. I said, not for me. Got to get out of here.
I'm like, see ya. Good luck with that, kids.
I mean, I can barely put up with Twitter. I want to strangle folks, but I can't reach them. So
yeah, exactly. It's like I just tell people if they ever want to see my work, as long as they can kind of spell my name, they can find me.
That's right. And it's pronounced Krindler, not Krendler.
Well,
Friend and Crand. I don't know how he came up with that. And you stole my thunder early. I was going to ask you, did your name come from Greg Nettles? And you stole it. I didn't get a chance to ask it. You just stole that from me. So
yes, it did indeed. Yeah. Funnily enough, my
in T-ball as a third baseman, your dad said I made the perfect decision on the name, and then by 8-year-olds, when you didn't make All-Stars, it's like maybe he's painting at this point. So
yeah, he's like he's watching me at the plate, swinging, missing pitch after pitch, not even touching the ball.
Not every pitch. It's almost impossible to swing and miss every one of them,
dude.
But you know what though? You swing that paintbrush extremely well.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, there you go. See, there's always a silver lining.
Right. If I can connect with that, that's
right. That is correct. And trust me, you probably going to make a decent amount of money doing it. And, the chances of making the majors is less than 21,000% or something like that. So
it's very true.
There you go.
True. That's very true.
Greg, I can't thank you enough, brother. I have kept you on here forever. I know it's getting late. We did this late show because this guy is such a family man. He wanted to make sure his kids were in the bed so they wouldn't hear any of this interview.
That's yeah. It's more like they needed to be in bed.
All right, guys. Like I said, check out Greg at his website. It's gregkrindler.com. And if you don't know how to spell it, check out the comments. It's going to be in the comments and the show notes on this episode. Greg, thank you, brother. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, William. I had a great time. Thank you for having me on.
No problem, man. We'll try to have you on in the future. Have a good evening, brother.
Thank you, my man. Same to you.
Man.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Oh, Greg trying to jump back on here. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up tonight. We're going to need you to tune in for us. July the 2nd is the next episode at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Our guest is going to be Mia Davidson-Smith. For those of you that don't know her, she is a professional softball player. She was a collegiate All-American, two-time All-American. She is the SEC home run leader, not only in softball, but for men and women. She is the all-time SEC home run leader. Like I said, for everything, baseball and softball. So check us out. 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time next Sunday, July the 2nd. And we will see you guys next week. Y'all have a good evening and good night.